Welcome, YouTube family, and welcome to another video of The Kevin Strong Show. And in this video, we're going to talk about how first-time home buyers are basically being shut out of the housing market. The American dream is slowly slipping away for the middle class. But before we get into that article, I thought it'd be interesting to go back a little bit in history and talk about how lower income, middle income, and upper middle income has changed from 1971 to 2021. And then we'll get into the article. Once again, if you're enjoying this type of content, please do me the honor of subscribing. Please leave a comment. I will do my best to respond to your comment, like the video, and share. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get into this. So this was from a company called the Pew Research Center. So in 1971, 25% of Americans were considered lower middle class in 1971. So I'm going to keep this by category so we don't get confused, or so I don't confuse you. So in 1971, 25% of Americans were considered lower middle class. In 2021, that went up from 25% to 29%. Now we move to the next category, which is considered middle class. In 1971, middle class was 61%, but in 2021, it dropped down to 50%. And last but not least, the upper middle class in 1971 was 14%, and that has increased to 21%. So that last column of upper middle class has seen a 50% increase, where the other preceding categories, lower and middle class respectively, have gone down quite a bit. And in general, you can probably make a decent assumption when people say the rich get rich and the poor get poor, but there's a lot that goes into that. These are basically just general numbers. And once again, these numbers are not adjusted for inflation. So if you were to do that, which I didn't do for the purpose of this video, the number as far as the lower income and the middle income is much, much worse. So without further ado, let's go ahead and jump into this article. As I said at the top of this video, it's called First-Time Homebuyers Are Being Shut Out of the Market Like Never Before. So everybody knows what's going on in terms of interest rates and how home prices nationally have just gone up exponentially within the last 2 years. We're starting to see a pullback in the housing market in general. Once again, there are exceptions to the rule. For full disclosure, I am a licensed broker in the state of Washington, so this is not financial advice. This is just my editorial opinion. And I'm also a licensed mortgage broker now. Still waiting to get the application process done in Virginia and the state of Washington, which is where I reside. But I just got notification for the state of Maine that my license is approved but inactive. So without further ado, let's go ahead and jump into this. Like I said, first-time home buyers are being shut out of the market like never before. Let's go ahead and jump into this. If you bought your first home during the past year, consider yourself one of the fortunate few. I disagree with that, but we'll go ahead and dive in a little bit deeper into this article, and then I'll come back to that first sentence to tell you why, in my humble opinion, I don't agree with that. Skyrocketing home prices and climbing interest rates push the share of first-time home buyers to an all-time low, according to a new report from the National Association of Realtors. And those first-time buyers were the oldest they have ever the first-time buyers were the oldest they have ever been, as the growing lack of affordability forced people to wait longer to reach life milestones like buying a home. Now that's true because people are delaying marriage, they're delaying kids. College is basically just so expensive within the last couple of decades. So all of these factors are pushing some of these big purchases farther and farther down people's life cycles. So to go back to this first sentence where they said, hey, if you bought your first home during the first past year, consider yourself one of the fortunate few. I disagree with that. I think if you've purchased within the last couple of years, you're probably in most markets going to see a significant pullback. George Gammon, who's a famous YouTuber, he's been on Fox News. Very, very, very smart guy when it comes to macroeconomics. He thinks in aggregate that home prices will adjust to inflation as far back as 2012. So I don't know if it's going to go that far back, but I think in the Seattle area, when you adjust for inflation, I think you can easily see 2016 and 2017 levels. But the devil's in the detail, and it remains to be seen. So let's go ahead and keep jumping into this article. Another point I want to make too, now that it comes to my attention, about, is it about the price or is it about the interest rate? Here's my humble opinion as a real estate agent, or what I would tell somebody. Okay, you marry the price, but you date the rate. So what do I mean by that? So don't overpay. Don't overpay. Okay. Don't get fixated on that interest rate if you're overpaying for the house. So I am of the opinion that if you get a good deal at a higher interest rate, that is more appealing because you bought at the right time, opposed to significantly overpaying for a home and justifying that overpayment or that overpriced home by saying I got a really, really historic low interest rate, because interest rates will fluctuate up and down. So will prices. But generally speaking, you want to buy something that not only is not overpriced, but more importantly, clearly within your financial budget. And I think in the long run, that will serve you a lot better. You can always convert to an interest-only product if you had to, if your family was experiencing some type of financial difficulty. Please also understand that when you purchase a home, find out what the rent rate is in relationship to your payment. So God forbid, if something happens and you need to get out of there, that you can maybe rent that house for a couple of years until the market stabilizes and then come back. And that could be a temporary setback, but at least you get to keep the home. Okay, back to the article. First-time buyers made up just 26% of all home buyers in the year ending in June of 22. They said that's down from 34% from the previous year, according to NAR. The age of the first-time home buyer also rose, with the typical age reaching 36 years old, up from 33 last year. So that's almost a 10% bump. The typical repeat buyer's age also climbed, reaching 59 years old, up from 56. Okay, both are all-time highs. So this here is a clear indication that things are getting a lot more expensive. And as a result, people have less disposable income, so they do not feel comfortable about making long-term purchases like a mortgage that typically is a 30-year debt obligation. As home prices soared and mortgage rates rose, buyers' income dropped, the report found. That is absolutely true. The median household income for first-time home buyers slipped to $71,000 during the year ended in June, down from $86,000. That's a lot in the previous 12-month period. Meanwhile, repeat buyers had a median income of $96,000, down from $112,000. So I'm going to make a big assumption here that the person who wrote this article is not adjusting these statistical numbers for inflation. If you factor in inflation, obviously wages are getting crushed. So when you see something in the housing market, folks, that says like in the Seattle area, like in the last 6 months, housing prices are down. I forgot what the number is. I don't have it now. Let's say 7 or 8%. Those are nominal numbers. That percentage that expressed the drop in home activity is a nominal number. So what that means in layman terms is that does not factor in inflation. If inflation in 2022, the government's telling us 8%, most of us think it's somewhere between 15 and 20. So let's say it's 15%, and you're in a market where in 2022, your house went down 8%. You see how you started adding that up? It's significant. It's a huge number, but most of the time, the stats that you read regarding housing in a negative light are taking in consideration only nominal values. They're not adjusting those numbers for inflation, something a lot of people don't know. But now you know. Buyers typically purchase their homes for 100% of the asking price, research shows, with 28% paying more than the asking price. And finally, last but not least, the first-time home buyers, the lack of affordability is playing a key role in holding them back from home ownership. Okay, they don't have the equity that repeat buyers have for a down payment to pay for cash. They have to save while paying more for rent, as well as a student debt, childcare, and other expenses. Okay. And this year we're facing increasing home prices while mortgage rates are also climbing. So that's a little misleading, because I think in aggregate, home prices are actually coming down. And I think they're coming down quite a bit. So my recommendation is that if you can afford to sit on the sideline, please do. The discounts are coming. Once again, you marry the price and you date the interest rate. So please keep that in mind. It's funny because a lot of people, the housing debate is very divisive. It's a very polarizing topic, and there are some big heavy hitters on both sides of the equation, right? Those people who think you should buy no matter what, and there's people who have a ton of real estate that say, hey, I'm going to keep what I have, but I'm going to wait a little bit and maybe 6 to 12 months before I tip, right, before I get back into the market. So please do your own due diligence, figure out a way to get your debt down. And I've talked about this for years, going back to 2017 when I had a local radio show in Lakewood, Washington. And people just don't want to hear it. You know, people get comfortable living paycheck to paycheck. People get comfortable with a certain lifestyle, and then things get tight. And a lot of times the best medicine is preventive maintenance. And what I mean by that is that you have to constantly be putting yourself in a position. Am I beating inflation? Am I constantly keeping my expenses down by trying to raise my income? When you get into a situation like a lot of Americans are dealing with right now, where they have to work 2 and 3, 4 jobs just to make ends meet, when housing prices come down, or when we get into a deflationary period, which I think we will experience within the next 12 to 18 months, those folks won't be in the mindset of being able to take advantage of, let's say, historically low home prices or certain goods and services, or being able to buy that great stock that you've been waiting to get, but you don't have any cash on the side because you're just doing enough to keep your head above the debt water. So I hope you enjoyed this content. I hope this video found you in a good place. You know my motto: keep your credit score up and your debt down. This was the Kevin Strong Show, and I'll see you guys in the next video.